Hey there folks, welcome back for another video. I'm your host Chris, or CDB, and today we're going to do a comparison video, which I know a lot of you like. We're going to use the Game Changer. This is the 68.68 plate safety bar against the Jaws, which is also the 6.8. So we're going to be using these two razors, if you can see them there, against each other, just to see, what the differences are, if any. The blade will be our sort of reference blade on the channel, Astra SP, because I have a lot of experience with Astra. We're going to be using also a RazoRock soap. This is the RazoRock Gold label, which smells like Aqua de Parma, XXX, if you're familiar with the RazoRock soap, XXX, Piacenza from Sterling. And this is a hard puck, triple milled. Triple milled, you can look it up, but essentially triple milled is when they take soap and they run it through these milling machines 3 times. It's super condensed. A lot of the air is squeezed out of it, water. Sometimes they add ingredients as they go, but it makes a soap really, really hard and condensed. And so I just usually cut a little bit of that off. I've got it in my bowl. We'll start loading in just a minute. But anyway, this is $5.99 for 3.5 ounces. Look at the cost chart there. $171 per ounce, which is terrific. And also, I must add, when you use a triple milled soap, it usually lasts way longer than a soft soap. So this is really a terrific, this would be off the chart in terms of value. Also, let me show you the ingredients there. And as you can see in the ingredients, this particular soap also has shea butter and lanolin in it. So really not a bad soap ingredients wise. And of course that, that depends on you and what you prefer. I've got it loaded now in my Captain's Choice copper bowl, which I really like a lot. And we'll just make sure we get a nice heavy load. With these triple milled soaps, they're really hard, so sometimes they're harder to load from. So if you want to, some people soak their pucks. I just cut it off here, put a little water in here, and just try to load the best I can, and we'll see what we end up with. I expect a good shave out of it. I've had good success with these inexpensive soaps. Again, $5.99 for 3.5 ounces, and it's triple milled. And I expect to get a really nice shave out of it. To be honest, I expect to get a nice shave out of every soap maker that has been in business for more than a couple of years. If you've survived, say 3 or more years, you're usually pretty decent at it because there is a lot of competition. Now, I know the artisans may not like the competition, but as a consumer, I love it. I love it. There are so many brands now, and I want to remind you all, remember 5-6 years ago when people used to always, this subject would come up all the time. They go, oh, the market is saturated. The market is saturated. The wet shaving sky is falling, and everybody's going to collapse. There are more artisans than ever. There are probably 3 times as many artisans now as there were during that time. And back then they were saying the market is saturated and couldn't handle any more artisans. And I think the key for us, those of us who are advocates for traditional style shaving, is to continue to do things in a way that brings new blood. That is critical. I'm going to use a little pre-shave here. We need to advocate or do our advocacy in a positive way that is not off-putting. And I'll be the first one to tell you, over the years on this channel, when I've gone through things, it has not always been the most positive and welcoming. And, just recently, say 3 months ago, I sort of realized that, and also realized I wasn't having a lot of fun. And it became obvious that why don't we just have fun and do what we did when we started, which was just have fun with shaving or forget everything else. Forget the differences and the personalities and really get back to the core mission of this channel, or both of my channels. I have an old channel, ilather.com. The mission being advocacy for this hobby to bring in new blood. And what does that do? New blood brings new products, because artisans can now, and vendors like Italian Barber, can now afford to take some risks and maybe take a flyer on something they may not when things are tight. And it's not all just hobbyists like you and I who keep things going. We need new people, and we need them all the time. And so the best way we can do that, in my estimation, is to be positive as much as possible. And that doesn't mean, don't confuse positivity with constant agreement and liking everything. I want to be very careful about that, because you can be very positive when you're evaluating a product and not like it. So positivity does not mean you have to like everything that comes across your channel or your blog or whatever, in whatever means you put out information. Wow, look at that. Plenty of lather there. No problems lathering this triple milled soap whatsoever. Anyway, you don't have to like everything, but you can use a product and try to be mindful and respectful and so forth, and try to get along with others, you know. All right, on this side, we're going to use the jaws. This is, again, 0.68 blade gap. And one of the things that I want to mention, that feels really nice. Good residual slickness there. No problem whatsoever. One of the things I want to mention is, folks, when it comes to aggression, everybody tends to focus strictly on blade gap. Blade gap does not tell the entire tale. It is part of what determines aggression. Also, there is the geometry of the head, the way the blade is bent, the exposure, and the exposure is sort of the amount of blade that sticks out. Don't always focus on blade gap, because you can get fooled, because sometimes a razor with a larger blade gap doesn't feel quite as aggressive as you would think relative to a razor that has a smaller blade gap. And that's based on the geometry of the razor. So that was quite smooth. All right. Oh, that feels good too. Wow, that is difficult. It's almost like I'm going to have to, both incredibly smooth. I will say that right out of the gate. Now, some people don't like open comb razors because they feel the teeth. Like, I think on the Mula R41, sometimes their teeth feel a little bit rough. Not the case with this Jaws. But it seems to me, it seems like I felt a little more juice on the Jaws side. But I also want to mention something else, because I see this all the time. Open comb does not mean, and again, for you veterans, I know many of you are going to know this already, but for those of you who don't know this, an open comb razor like this, just because it's open comb does not automatically mean it's more aggressive. It does not mean that. So do not think that. Also, when it comes to slants, a lot of people make the mistake of assuming that a slant razor is automatically by default more aggressive. That is not true. That is not true. It all depends on all the variables that are in play. How much blade gap, how much blade exposure, is the blade curved, is it held tightly in place, is there blade chatter? There's all sorts of factors. And really, who you should listen to on that when we have these razor manufacturers on YouTube interviews, it would be really nice to get them to explain their approach. Like on the Razor and Burn podcast, we saw Carve, which was an excellent podcast. They talk quite a bit about manufacturing in that podcast, which is not as much interest to me. I want to know how they make the razors, what, in terms of, they really got into the business side. And I think it's still a good podcast worth watching. Don't get me wrong. Razor Burn podcast. They talked a lot about businesses and processes. And as a hobbyist, that's not nearly as much interest to me as is, tell me about this razor. Tell me about the process. Show me some images of how that razor is made. What makes it aggressive? How is this E plate different from the A? That's sort of what I want to hear from a razor manufacturer. Now, that said, I also found it interesting when they get into the business practices and how they're trying to be efficient and get more razors shipped. That was of interest to me. So there's a little bit of everything there, but I think in the future, and I still have to finish that podcast. I'm about halfway through it. So they might get to some of the things that that I'm talking about, and I just haven't seen it yet, because I made a comment, but I intended to go back and finish the whole video, because I haven't seen the entire video yet. I've seen half to 3/4, I would say, but I will go back and finish it. But I really want to know more about how these razors are made. Okay, let's see how that feels relative to this. To me, the jaws, using them, you know, right next to each other, feels a little more efficient. Now, again, the teeth can make it's sometimes open combs are deceptive, because when you use it, you feel those teeth a little bit more than the bar. And so it will give you the impression that it's doing more. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't, but it is not the case that every open comb razor is automatically by default more aggressive than a safety bar razor. It's just simply not the case. So same thing with slant razors. I want everybody to understand that. And again, I'm really looking forward to seeing more razor manufacturers get into, you know, from a functional standpoint, what makes razors aggressive, what their philosophy is, you know, why it's more difficult, for example, and more expensive to make titanium. We all know it's a more expensive metal and it's harder to work with. It's hard. But I am interested. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure the Jaws 6/8, same blade gap, but it feels to me to be a little more efficient than the regular safety bar. Both smooth, both very nice. Let's make sure we state that. And this soap is working quite well. Again, $5.99, folks. $5.99, triple milled. Got some shea butter in there. Got some lanolin. A lot of people, they see the prices of these soaps and like, yeah, you know, it's not expensive, so it's not highfalutin. And me, I use everything. You know, I've used the cheapest of the cheap to the most expensive $70+ soaps over the years. And I have found, for my money, there is definitely cases where you can tell, there are situations where you can tell where the money you spend gets you a little bit more. There's no question. But there are also many, many, many inexpensive soaps that will take your shave from A to Z with just as much comfort and will do basically the same thing for a whole lot less. And so it's really a matter of what enjoyment really is, where it falls, you know. And so if you enjoy buying, you know, the Pana Crema Nueva or whatever it was called, and it's like $70-some, if you enjoy that and that's what's important to you, then go for it, you know. But for me, I bought that soap and I'm like, it is absolutely a fine soap, no question about it. But it's not 10 times finer than this. Just not. And trust me, I've used them both. And you'll see that in a lot of cases, the more expensive soaps tend to make the cut when I get rid of things. Or excuse me, the less expensive soaps. I said that exactly opposite. The less expensive soaps tend to make the cut. And it's because a lot of times, just like, you know, I can't really justify keeping this. Look, I've had Aqua de Parma, I've had XXX, I've had Pana Crema Nueva. You name the $70 soap, I've had it. I had several different versions of Martin de Condre. The only version that I kept was Fougere because the scent is unique. I've gotten rid of almost everything that I spent that kind of money for, just simply because it was like, okay, it's just meh, you know. Now, you may find that it just feels really good to you. Let's compare these here. Okay, the exact same place. Yeah. I am pretty certain. Let's feel this now. Yeah. The jaws just, I feel like I'm getting more blade on the jaws side of the house. Whether it's doing a better job or not, I cannot say. but it definitely feels more efficient, even with the same stated blade gap. And that's what I'm trying to get across during this video. It's not always about just blade gap. That's the thing that people seem to fixate on excessively. And it does mean something, don't get me wrong. And for those of you who don't know, the blade gap is generally the distance between where you see the blade and the top cap and the base plate, the distance between both of those, measuring to the blade, generally speaking. But it doesn't tell the entire story. There are other factors that you should always consider. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing razor manufacturers sort of delve into that and explain. For example, I'm going to use Carve as an example because I've used it 3 times recently. Carve is, I would call on the, I think E-plate is the one I've been using. A lot of people feel like that's fairly aggressive, but to me it feels just fine. It feels like super smooth. And I don't feel a tremendous amount of blade on my face with the Carve because of its design. And it's designed so you don't feel a lot of blade. And again, I don't know if the gentleman they had on the Razor and Berg podcast spoke to that design. I can't recall. If he did, it was towards the end and I haven't seen it yet, and I will be watching. But it's deceptively aggressive, I guess you would say. Because E is, it's got some juice. But it manages to feel pretty smooth, and you don't feel like you're running an R41 across your face, And so that's good. Okay. How did we do? Very nice. I'm pretty certain that as it applies to the .68 plates, the jaws feels more efficient to me. In terms of the shave, I've tried to make it come out the same, and I've adjusted, and it feels good on both sides, but I do feel the jaws just feels a little more efficient. To me, it's really hard to see well in this light, but maybe give you it's just nearly impossible to see. Plus I got the soap film on there now. But for my money, the jaws feels a little more efficient. Let me rinse, we'll come back and get into both. Stay tuned. All right, and here we are back with the Lancaster RazoRock Black Sheep Towel. Just gonna dry off here a little bit. And I've been showing this because it's something I like. Originally I saw this on the DK Blackbeard channel. And I said, you know what? He really likes that. He said, you don't think you need it until you get it. And then you're like, wow, I needed that. And that's the way I feel. I'll probably do a video just on this, even though I don't think they have any in stock right now. Maybe I'll reach out to the gent and see when he'll have some in stock. I really like it. Let's go ahead and hit it up with some Humphreys here while we're fooling around. That was an excellent shave. No creepers, weepers, cuts, irritation, no bubbles, no troubles, and that's what we shoot for here every single day. And we succeed a good percentage of the time. That's my goal always. No creepers, weepers, cuts, irritation, bubbles, troubles. Just excellent. Stand by for a minute. Someone's knocking on the door. All right, and we're back. That was the mailman dropping off a package, just rapping on the door, as Edgar Allan Poe said. Okay, what do we use today? The RazoRock Gold Label. This smells like XXX or Acqua di Parma or Sterling Piacenza. Very, very good stuff. We used the RazoRock Game Changer with the base plate. This is the 6/8 plate against the jaws with the 6/8. The jaws to me feels a little more efficient. Some of it could be deceptive due to that open comb and feeling those teeth, but it felt to me to be a little bit more efficient. Just my feeling on it, for whatever that's worth. We used our West Coast Shaving Synthetic, which is really a great value. It's like usually $17-ish when they have them. And we're going to finish off today with the RazoRock XXX. And I'm using my newer stock because I'm sort of keeping my old stock after shaves. I've got, well, I'll show you. I've got this older version of XXX, and I've got the original fine XXX, which you can see is about halfway gone. I use that sparingly because I really love it. But today we're going to use one of the more recent versions, which will still be great. Really great scent, I find. A lot of people really like this. It's a classic Italian lemony scent. There are many, many different notes in it, but it comes off to me as a citrusy type scent, which I just absolutely love. And I want to thank everybody once again for joining me for this video. I hope everyone stays safe. Please do all you can to keep yourself safe. I want to see you back here tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And I want to wish you good health, many blessings. And I want to remind you, it's your shave. Do it your way, and God bless.